Hello and welcome to Astrology with Zeke. Today, by request, I'm going to be doing the Roman Emperor Nero. Probably most famous for the story of him supposedly playing a lyre while Rome was burning. He's also classified as one of the five bad emperors of Rome. Um, Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stories, but a whole bunch of crazy stuff about him. But what is interesting is more modern historians are saying that perhaps a lot of stories are exaggerated about him, and he possibly wasn't that bad of a guy. So I figured, hey, what the heck? Why don't we just take a look at the chart? Because yeah, you can't hide the truth when you have the chart, the birth chart. So. With that out of the way, let's just go ahead and dig into Nero's chart. Okay, a lot of action going on the ascendant right off the bat. Uh, he's a Sagittarius sun, and his sun is right there on the ascendant. So Sagittarius is a sign of the seeker, the optimist, that person who is very concerned with freedom and loves foreign things, always has their eyes on the horizon, always on the go, always on the move. Um, there's a problem, however. Besides his sun being on the ascendant, his sun and ascendant are all making an exact conjunction with Pluto, which, of course, is the planet of the abuse and misuse of power. Also, while not exactly on the ascendant, uh, his sun is also conjunct Mars in Sagittarius. So this formation is what's called besieged. His sun is besieged because it's sandwiched in between two malefic planets. Before we go into too much detail about that, I'll just talk about what Mars and Sagittarius is. So Mars is our drive and how we assert ourselves. And so with it being in Sagittarius, that would be someone who is really motivated by seeking personal freedom. Um, they would absolutely hate being restricted. And what this formation is specifically saying is he was the kind of person who not only greatly valued his freedom, but he also didn't care what anybody thought. And if he believed that you were in the way of him getting his way, of him doing whatever the heck he wanted, he'd take you out. He'd take you out in a heartbeat. Honestly, if anything, this formation alone, not even looking at anything else, is probably the strongest case for the older history uh, written about him being true, because this is highly indicative that he was a sociopath. Sociopaths are the kind of people who are highly violent, highly unpredictable. Um, do not do well in controlled settings, have a hard time with follow through. And those are all very Sagittarian traits uh, displayed at their most negative, which is kind of what this is saying. Someone who's very sociopathic. I mean, uh, he also killed his mother, so that wouldn't surprise me because he actually became emperor when he was 16. And the real power behind the throne was his mom. His mom was effectively ruling behind him, and in order to get out from under her, he had her executed. So yeah, this ain't surprising at all. It just goes to show, just because a modern historian is saying, well, this was probably exaggerated, well, this or that. Show me the birth chart, my friend. Show me the birth chart. Sometimes they really are that bad. Sometimes they really are. Uh, yeah. Moving on from that, we can just go to his moon because his moon is making it's loose, but it is an applying trine. He's a Leo moon. It's in the eighth house, which is the house of sorrows. And interestingly enough, his eighth house is ruled by the moon, as the eighth house cusp is in Cancer, and Cancer is the mother. Oh, wouldn't you know it? This is indicative that he had a not so great relationship with his mother. And even though this trine is technically a beneficial aspect, what that's saying is whenever he is feeling like he isn't getting the attention, the adulation, and being the man in charge that he needs, he will assert himself in such a way to get rid of any threat to that feeling, even if that person's his own mother. Uh, yeah, so make it that way it will. Also, interestingly enough, his moon is a part of a T square. So, with him being a Sagittarius ascendant, his chart ruler is Jupiter. And would you look at that? His Jupiter is in Aquarius, 11th house. It's also at the apex of a T square. It's squaring his moon in Leo, as we've kind of touched on, and it's also squaring Neptune in Aquarius' second house. So, what does this mean? Well, this is just par for the course that he was well known for being a highly intense individual. Because Scorpio is sign of someone who has that deep, dark, charismatic, intense kind of feel to them. And with the ruler of Scorpio also being in Sagittarius, what this tells me is, yeah, he would take out anyone who got in the way of him getting his way. It tells me that he was a highly selfish person. He really didn't care what other people thought, and he was going to do whatever he was going to do. I think obviously this probably became much more apparent to him as he got older. Because again, he became emperor when, by Roman law, he was a man, but by our standards, I mean, he was 16. He was an adolescent. And just based off of what we know of human development and the development of the brain, is it's much harder to become more assertive. Like the brain isn't done developing until you're like 25. Um, so it's really not that surprising that he was very much under the wing of his tutor, the Stoic philosopher Seneca, his mother, and a number of his advisors were really running things behind the scenes, you know. And that's why, at least at the beginning of his rule, he appears to be, measured and all this. One of the big reasons why modern historians doubt the validity of the more ancient historians is because amongst commoners he was quite popular. Uh, but honestly, I think all that goodwill was due to all the people in his initial inner circle running things. As soon as he got started getting his way, like all hell broke loose. That's when he really started having problems with the upper class amongst Rome. Like, not one of Roman aristocrats, not one had a good thing to say about this guy. And I think the only reason that commoners might have thought positively of him is because they weren't up close to him at all. They didn't see the real Nero. They were probably clinging to this idea of him that just wasn't true. And what's interesting to me is you see this Jupiter, it's squaring Neptune in the second house, which tells me there's a lot of illusions, a lot of BS when it comes to how he handles money. And Aquarius is the sign of the person who puts the tribe above the self. And what we look at is he was also responsible for a lot of ostentatious public projects that the historian Tacitus just had not one good thing to say. Just you kind of get the feeling that he believed they were gaudy, you know. But Rome was all about it was all about spectacle. I mean, you look at the games in the Colosseum, like the Roman aristocrats knew how to work the commoners like like a fiddle. So I think all the goodwill that he had from the commoners was was BS, you know. That and there was funny business with the economy at the time. It was noted that there was a lot of deflation during Nero's rule, which, of course, is the opposite of inflation. So with inflation, money becomes less and less valuable, whereas with deflation, it becomes more and more value. So effectively, your money goes farther. So that might be one reason why commoners thought highly of him. But you know what? That's because they didn't know the guy at all, because he got this opposition to the moon and Leo, which is in the eighth house, which is the house of sorrows. It's also the house of joint finances, of debts. You know, it's also how you feel about your spouse too. And interestingly enough, yeah, it's he just there's a lot of weird, funny business going on when there's stuff written about his sexuality too. It's also known that he had multiple divorces, all kind of funny business, but because it is written by people who despise him, and the sources don't necessarily agree with each other, it's really hard to say what's true. What I can say is there's a word I'd like to use that isn't YouTube friendly, but there's just a lot of illusions behind this guy. And it's really hard to say whether or not sources are in fact true, but what I can say very comfortably is this man was a sociopath. Um, some other stuff that's actually rather interesting about him is, he's got a square between that Pluto, Sun, Mars conjunction. It's squaring Saturn and Virgo. And this is something that's actually very interesting. This means that he was probably a very intelligent person, because Saturn's all about discipline, restriction, order, and with it being in the sign of Virgo, which is all about details, teeny tiny details, is there's probably a lot of and it's also in the ninth house, which is about higher learning, spirituality, philosophy. And this indicates that he was probably a highly intelligent person. After all, he was tutored by Seneca, who's one of the big Stoic philosophers. And um, it's also just about someone who really cares about the small details. But what's so strange is, at the end of the day, if that reality gets in the way of what he wants, he throws it out the window. It's like, I don't care. Because what's interesting about his Saturn is the ruler of his Saturn, Mercury, is, look at that, in Sagittarius. And Mercury in Sagittarius is it's in detriment. It doesn't like being in Sagittarius. Because Sagittarius really doesn't like small details. And so this is a very, very odd thing about him, is it's like he likes details. He likes uh truth and reality, so long as it serves his purposes. You know, it speaks to me that he's the kind of guy who the second the facts don't line up with what he wants, he'll do whatever to make things work for him. This is a very odd placement, but also, again, just speaks to an intelligent sociopath. Because when you look at different serial killers who are actually really smart people, one thing you'll notice is, like, they often did poorly in school. They didn't do well in a career, and it's because they just don't have a lot of follow through. They have next to no discipline. And so, again, this just further confirms that he was a sociopath. What's also interesting is his Saturn does make a nice aspect to uh his Venus. So his Venus is in reception because his Venus is first house Capricorn. So Venus in Capricorn is a person who gets a lot out of handling business, out of getting things done. Capricorn is the sign of the ladder climber. And this is just so odd for a guy who just wants to do whatever the heck he wants. But what I will say is he does get it kind of tempers sociopathy, in the sense that, like, he did make it to being an emperor, and he was emperor for some time, like almost 20 years. and he did get a lot done during his time. He put down a number of rebellions. This is a he was actually the emperor during Boudica's rebellion against the Roman Empire, for example. You know, so there was a lot of stuff that was happening during his rule, and there was a lot of things he had to handle. That being said, he would also do like crazy stuff. Like it was said that whenever he would make a proclamation and he would post it, he would post it on pillars that were like so high that it was next to impossible to read it. So he would he was the master of just messing with people. Again, there's other words I'd like to use, but they're not YouTube friendly. I'm sure you can figure out what I want to say, but. Yeah, to my mind, this just confirms that like he was the scumbag that the historians of the time said he was. Modern historians are just they're wrong. They're wrong. Like this guy was a real piece of work, to say the least. Yeah, anyways, I really don't have much more to say about the guy. I mean, this is just plain as day. Oh yeah, and there's also people who think like he didn't actually burn down Rome. He absolutely would if he felt he would get something out of it. 100%. 100%. All the commoners of his empire are little peons. They're ants. This man has little to no care for his common man. So yeah, yeah. Uh, anyways, I really have nothing else to say about the guy. I'm just gonna be beating a dead horse if I keep going. So yeah, I think that about does it for Nero. Yep. Again, the birth chart shows it all and just confirms what ancient historians said. I will say, when it comes to certain specific details, it might be hard to figure out what the truth is because some people will put such BS out there because they hated him so much. That being said, what I can confirm is the guy was a sociopath. Like that, there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Um, it's not in dispute whether or not he killed his mother. That he had her executed. Um, yeah. So yeah, I would say never trust a man who kills his own mother. But there you go. Anyways, that about does it for Nero. Yeah, if there's anybody else you'd like me to do, I'll go ahead and give him a shot. But I will say I also do readings professionally. So if you want to book my services, just go ahead, shoot me an email at astrologywithzeke.com. I also have a website with the same domain name, astrologywithzeke.com. Oh, excuse me. My email is astrologywithzeke at gmail.com. So, yeah, I'll put all of that in the description below. And that'll about do it for today. And we'll see you all next time.